Hi everyone, I'm Sandy and today I'm doing my 1001 book countdown. So if you are, as always, if you're not familiar with this concept, I will leave a link to the intro where you can go out and discover just how completely mad I really am. But it's basically book reviews where I'm reading off of a very long list of books, trying to get through all 1001 down to 0. And so for today, what we'll do is we will put up the numbers where I stopped last time, which is 995 and 30, which is my 2021 number. And we're just going to jump right in today. I did have a really good reading week and a half or so. I did not have a 1001 countdown last week, but I do have a great one for today. So the first book that I'm going to talk about is Silas Marner. So Silas Marner was written by George Eliot, which is actually a pen name of a female writer who I'm trying to remember the name, Mary Ann Evans. This was one I was hoping to do my first reading vlog, and it unfortunately didn't go very well. If you want to see footage of me weaving, because Silas Marner has a weaver in it, I will put a link in the description to some footage that I will put at the end of this video. If you are really interested and you want to go out and see my tabletop loom and a little bit of footage of the stuff that I put on it, I will put that at the end. But for Silas Marner, this was an absolutely wonderful book. I really did enjoy the character of Silas Marner. So if you're not familiar with the story, Silas is a weaver and starts his time out in a different city, which I can never remember the name of for whatever reason. I remember where he ends up, but not the city he starts in. And, he actually has a fairly normal life in that first city where he has a best friend and he has a fiance. And unfortunately, he experiences some pretty major betrayal at that city and ultimately leaves and ends up in the town of Ravelot. So Ravelot, while he's there, he's weaving and making money hand over fist. He's a bit obsessed with money in it. And we'll try not to give spoilers because there's a lot of really fun discoveries in this book that I would love for people to experience. And so he is in Ravelot and is making money. He has a medical condition that kind of puts him into almost this, I guess, fugue-like state. I'd love to know exactly what it was that he had. And so he will just kind of go into a trance almost. But he is working hand over fist, and then there's some nefarious characters that cause him some harm, not physical harm, but other types of harm, and then also gives him one of the greatest gifts he could have gotten, all because of these more nefarious characters that are in the book. Ultimately, if you look at the cover, which has a young child on it, a young child does wander into his house and changes his life really forever. And this basically is just a story of how, from what I took of it, how family and how this young child just really changed him and really made him just a different person entirely. There's a little bit of redemption that happens from the nefarious characters, not as much as I necessarily wanted, but absolutely lovely book. I gave it 4 stars, and I can't really even reconcile why I didn't rate it higher than that, but I did give it 4 stars. Absolutely worth checking out. If you are looking for a classic to start with and are not sure where to start, this might actually be a good option because 1, it's not super long, 2, it's very easy read, and it does have some twists and turns that are unexpected and really, really fun ones. So yeah, Silas Marner. And that is book 995. Unfortunately, it wasn't on my 2021 list, so that number stays at 30. Okay, so I do have another one. For the next one, what I picked up, and these were all actually for the Pastoral Readathon, which is being hosted by Summer at Cozy Reading with Quaker Cats and Angie at Literary Labors. I will put links to both of their announcement videos in my description as well, but I had picked all of these for the Pastoral Readathon. And so the next one I picked up is A World of Love by Elizabeth Bowen. So this one was for the pastoral cover, and this certainly worked for that. This is it's called Montfort is the estate's name. This book is one I have to say, unfortunately, I was a bit disappointed with. When you read the back, it makes it seem like it's going to be this wonderful love story where the daughter Jane finds some letters in the attic and it's never really clear who the letters are written to. And so there's a bit of intrigue from that perspective, but it didn't really go into the letters at all, which is really what I wanted it to do. I wanted to read the letters and experience the letters and get to know the person who had written them and maybe see if it would relate to the people in the house. And I never got that. They never talked about what was actually in the letters. They talk a little bit about the person who wrote them. They try and figure out kind of who they belong to, but not in a way that was really even necessarily so much about the letters. It was about interactions between the family, between the mother and the daughter and the wife and husband, and those types of impacts as far as how they would work or how they got along together. There was one line in here that I did remember quite clearly, which was they were at a party, or Jane was, I believe, at a party, and Tonya, who's one of the characters there, said that they were nouveau rich, but it was better late than never. And I thought that was a really clever line. The other main problem I had with this book was actually the writing. And so the examples that I have in here of the writing is it's just so incredibly choppy and hard to understand. And so like in this particular one, they had by their action upon each other generated a ceaseless energy which accumulated in them when they did not use it. When they went blank, for instance, when they projected nothing, or when all out, they flung themselves down into abeyances like dogs, or have been running, one bringing the other to a stop. They would stand at attention, face to face, waiting for the signal to go on again, waiting to see from which of them it would come. For not come, it could not and never did. What? What was that? I have read that line or that piece in this book so many times, and I still am struggling to understand exactly what it was saying. So I don't know if it's just me, but the language is like that through quite a bit. It was written in the 50s, I believe, but it still has just what feels like, and it's presented as a time closer to that time frame. So it's not like it's presenting time back in the 1800s. It is not. And so it also has stuff like, funny it sounds without the river. Okay, rather than it saying it sounds funny without the river, just kind of how the language was presented to me was really off-putting, and I had trouble connecting to the characters because of that. Ultimately, I wanted it to be a different story than it was, and that's primarily why I ended up giving it 2.5 stars, but it was good for Pastoral Readathon and did fit the prompt exactly perfectly. It just wasn't a story I connected with very well. So, but it is book 994. It is also not on my 2021 list. So that's still at 30. And then I have one more, which I'm very excited about, which is actually also for the Pastoral Readathon, which was for the children's book, and that is Tarka the Otter. And so this, if you look at this lovely, lovely cover, Noah over at Everyone Reads Must Converse had called out it's an NYRB edition, which you can see on that maybe. No, it's going to be too fuzzy. I had no idea. I don't know much about the editions, but he's so impressive, Noah, about how he can call out an edition just from the cover, which I thought was really interesting. Sorry, that was a massive side note. So for this particular book, Tarka, this is told from the Otter's perspective. What I found really interesting, and it follows Tarka all the way from his birth through his life, through mating, through follies, through trials that he has. And I won't tell you how it ends because it does end in kind of a surprising way, which is I wasn't expecting. It doesn't necessarily have a happy ending, but it was different than what I was expecting. So, but being told from the Otter's perspective, I love stories that are told from an animal's perspective. It's one of my favorite. I guess is it a trope? I'm not sure. This is where my lack of literary credentials really impacts me. So being told from an animal's perspective, I really did enjoy it. What I found fascinating about this particular one is I was expecting it to be more like Watership Down, where the animals had voices like human voices and told the story that way. And that's not how this book is done. This book is told from observing the otter. You do get a bit of it being told from the otter, but he doesn't have an active voice in that he's saying things. So it is a bit more natural feeling that you're just kind of following the otter's life along, which I thought was really wonderful. The other thing that was really interesting to me is that as a reader, you're reading it with the observation and having your anxiety around what's going on, but the otter doesn't feel that way. He doesn't actually give you, and when you're reading it, like this feeling of anxiety. It's just he's going about his life and going through everything, and he doesn't actually ever say like very much that he's worried or scared. He doesn't express human emotions. He very much is an animal in this book. And the back says it's actually based off of Williamson's observing of actual otters in the wild, which really does ring true to me because it felt that way. And you get that from the text as well, because it says in here, no hound spoke, but the reason of the silence was not considered by Tarka, who could not reason such things. So the author acknowledges that the animal in the book, meaning Tarka, is just not capable of consuming or understanding necessarily everything that's going on. He also says Tarka felt neither fear nor rage against the hound. He wanted to be left alone. He didn't have, again, those human-like emotions that you get in some other books that are told from the otter's perspective. From the animal's perspective. But Williamson did a really lovely job of making you care about the otter and the otter's life. It is a fascinating picture of life in the wild, about how otters were hunted and how killing an otter was really for sport. And it was truly, truly fascinating read. He did a wonderful job. I rated this 4.5 stars, which I'm trying to figure out why I rated it higher than Silas Marner, but because did I really like this one more than Silas Marner? I can't really say, but it is a wonderful book. If you are going to recommend it to a younger reader, know that there is quite a bit of death in this book. And the characters in the book don't necessarily remember or have any kind of real empathy when characters or when other animals die. So it is, if you're going to recommend it, even though it is technically, I believe, a children's book or a middle grade book, just know there's quite a bit of death in this book. But very well done, if that's a thing. So anyway, that is my third book off of my 1001 list, which takes me to 993, which is wonderful. Unfortunately, it also was not on my 2021 list. I don't have one for my 2021 list, so I am officially 1 week behind on my 2021 list. That's not good, given I have a lot to read this month that is not related to my 1001 book list. I do have the Book of Disquiet, which I have talked about before, that I have started, and I just want to let it romance me a little bit. The writing is such that I want to just take my time. So this is the one that right now I'm about 42 pages in, which will probably hopefully be on next week's. And then, but we're going to end it 993 and 30. But I hope to be back next week, and hopefully you've stuck around this long, because I will put up some Loom footage for you now. As always, like, comment, subscribe. Really appreciate all the comments. I love interacting with everyone. And until next time, everyone, hope you like the Loom footage. Hopefully it works out. Anyway, Thanks. Bye.
So this tabletop loom, like I said, is pretty simple. If you're not familiar with a loom, which I certainly don't know all the terms for a loom, some basic, I mean really basic pieces is this, I believe, is called the beater bar. You use it to pull forward and tighten basically the fabric as you're creating it. These are called heddles and these are called shafts, and then you raise and lower those by using these handles here. So you can create different patterns by using different handles. So it just depends on what you want to make. There's also a release up here. If you pull all 4 handles down, there's a crank down here that you use to wind the fabric as you're weaving it. And then this is an actual break. So it holds the fabric in place. Pretty basic. You also have a couple other pieces. You have this hook here that you use for threading through this section. And you have to thread through these tiny little holes here to the back, and you hook the fabric up or the threads up from this front piece here all the way to this back piece here, and you weave it through here. So your pattern will change depending on how many you thread through each section, and then the order in which you raise and lower the handles. And you also have this thing called a shuttle. This is a pretty basic shuttle here that you use to send the yarn or thread back and forth this way. So when you're loading a loom, this is called the warp and this is called the weft. Okay, so I'm back on my phone because I think I want to move this out a bit. I have put all of the yarn on the loom right now. You can see it's connected here with the thread and it's all fed through here and looks really pretty right here right now. And then you basically will be pulling this forward and back. I'm going to leave it like this because I need to go actually around to the other side. And this is what you have right now. I'm going to record this part actually on my phone rather than on my other one. I'm hoping I was able to do a time lapse, we'll see. But you can see here, I use the white thread as the weft. Here, I use the pink thread as the weft. So the pink is very solid and the white is just a little more subtle. And then up here, I use the blue. So you can see here, the blue is really solid and then the other 2 colors. So you end up with just a very subtle stripe in this particular one. If you wanted to make a plaid or more of a plaid, you would change colors more frequently between here. I just frankly didn't want to take the time to do that today. But that's it. I think that's probably where I'm going to end it for now.